Okay, when we go green there, we're good. Starting. Live now.
Guys, happy Thursday. Welcome to another HotBox podcast. Double digits. We're almost teenagers.
Yeah, I know. Almost teenagers. Can you believe it's 10 weeks since we hatched this? Anyway.
Yeah, it is.
And it's my first time on the couch.
Yes.
Yeah, I've normally either not been here or been there. So have you been on the couch before?
I've never been on the couch. I'll do it for our real teenage birthday, the 13th one.
If you miss me by minute 30, you can come and...
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, this is something getting restricted 18 years, guys. Guys, as we said last week, this is going to be pretty much a book club episode.
Yeah.
So imagine like your old lady does, your mom, she goes, gets hammered with her friends once a week and talk shit about books. We're going to do that, and we're going to talk about some of our favorite books. We're not going to go into great detail, but I think the only place to begin is at the beginning.
No way. Well, the beginning of the books in the bookshelf at our home that we've been collecting, not so much since we were the Dagga couple, but just in general forever. It all starts with a brief history of drugs, and it actually says from the Stone Age to the Stone Age.
Ah, that's
because
great.
Our point is that humans have been doing this forever, and as human rights activists, that's what we play on, the fact that it's inherent in humans to want to be high. So this little book here is very easy to read. It opens your eyes to the fact that it has gone on for thousands of years in every single culture, and people wanted to get high all along. We did a presentation for Cannabis, a psychoactive plant conference in the Linda Auditorium in 2014 or so, and this is what we started on. The fact we went right back to the very beginning, and we documented how people have been cutting it and infusing it and boiling it and powdering it and
not just weed.
No. This is the brief history of humans getting high. But cannabis, of course, has been in this. It's 12,000 years of use, basically. Do you remember the book we put in our first affidavit? It said marijuana, the first 12,000 years, and that was in there. So that's where I would start with my collection on psychoactives and drug paraphernalia and drug history.
And did you get this before you were activists, or did this come after the fact?
I actually got this to research the Cannabis speech. Yeah, we went back to the beginning to figure it all out. So this is during the Dagga couple, this one.
But when we first started, it was just on the cusp of when e-books were first starting to come out and get popular. Really, I mean, not even Facebook and all of those things were really that advanced when we started out as the Dagga couple. It's incredible to see how many books we have collected just on the Kindle and on the tablet and whatever since then. So quite a lot of the books in our collection are kind of a bit relics. They've been around for a while. We still do collect hard copy books because I think there's nothing better than an actual book, people say, and especially if you're going on holiday. Going on holiday now during the silly season, why don't you get a nice, easy-to-read weed book? There's hundreds of them, thousands of them, even in your local bookstore. This is one of my favorites from earlier on. It's called Joint Ventures, Inside America's Almost Legal Marijuana Industry. And I remember reading this and thinking, whoa, this is so far away. And it's warning of the takeover for Big Pharma. It's warning about over-control by governments. It's quoting figures that then seemed enormous, but actually are tremendously out of date now. Yeah. But it's great to read something like this, even if you don't read every word. It deals about making money supplying seeds. It talks about all the support industries around. So nothing's changed in terms of what is needed for legal cannabis anywhere in the world. This book gives us good advice as would be given today. It's just the information, the actual facts and figures are a bit out of date. And one could probably say America has got a legal marijuana industry. It's not almost anymore. So this one is a goodie, more of a skim through than read every single word.
Was that based on California?
No, this is based on the whole of, it is about Northern California's Emerald Triangle. That's the core of it. But it also looks at how would other states react, and how is it going to spread, and how is it going to spread around the world, and how we're going to deal with this corporatization thing. That's the central theme of the book.
I remember when you got it. I think it came in the mail. We got it online, and it was so far-fetched and so far ahead of its time. I skipped through to get the general idea, but what I got from that was quite a lot of shudderingly bad news about how there will be a takeover. It's already happening because that's how humans do it.
And if you've seen that series, documentary series called Marijuana Inc., this is the scriptwriter from Marijuana Inc. as well.
Right.
So it's not, it's a little bit dated, but certainly still worth a read. Joint Ventures, they love these titles of these books, don't they?
My pick of the week, I think this is the book that comes up the most often when I meet stoners the first time.
Right.
Is Mr. Nice.
Yeah.
So just to give you the idea, he was Britain's most wanted man. He has just spent 7 years in America's toughest penitentiary.
Yeah.
You'll like him. And honestly, you're going to like the guy. This is the story, and it's a Welsh guy. He starts off pretty early on, but the meat of the book is spent in about 20 or 30 or so years he spent smuggling mostly hash into the UK. And he did this predominantly during the 70s and probably early 80s, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this guy was smuggling fucking tonnage.
Oh no, tonnage.
We're not talking low scale. And these were in the early days. I don't think there were many guys doing it back then. But get it, like the title says, Mr. Nice. This is a nice guy. This was like a massive drug dealer who never owned a gun, never used a gun. There was no violence to it. And he operated, and let me tell you, this guy lived a life. He had something like 20 passports. He had properties in Switzerland, UK, wherever his heart desired. And eventually, in the end, he gets bust. So it does have a sort of sad moment to it, the reality that he's going to get bust. The Americans wanted him too terribly. But if I could just summarize, one of the most charming points for me in the entire book is it was such a golden era of smuggling, and it was almost so easy that they used to literally smuggle it in speakers to rock concerts in the States and things like that.
Yeah, that's how they did it. Most of the English bands that went across the transatlantic, that's how they opened up the American market for hashish, because it was unheard of. But I always maintained that this man at his height in the late 70s, early 80s, it's absolutely, I know for a fact that I must have smoked some of his hash, because it was him that was bringing in the tonnage when I first started smoking hash in 74 or 5. So he was just getting going, and his heyday was during the mid-80s. And what a life he did have. And he became a complete celebrity. He had movies, and he's an incredible DJ. There's DJ sets of his from 10 years ago on YouTube that are rocking the whole house.
We were in Amsterdam for the High Times Cannabis Cup, the last one before it was shut down. We believe that it's coming back to Amsterdam.
It was last weekend.
It's already been.
It's already been.
Oh,
low key though. No, I don't think anything much happened there.
Old news.
So they had the special awards dinner for all of the veterans and lifetime achievements and whatever. But it was quite a closed sort of in-house affair. But we knew some people who knew some people, and they smuggled us in there, and we got to sit right in the front row. And there was Howard Marks. He was getting this lifetime achievement award, and he spoke, and he was really funny, like a real crusty, pommy dude. And we got to meet him. It was a real honor because he passed away earlier this year. You could see then when we saw him 3 years ago that he was really ill with cancer, and I think one always wonders whether he was using cannabis oil for his cancer. But quite a character. And then the last holiday that we went on, I got a hold of the ebook of Howard Marks's wife's book. Now there's a different story. I don't think it was that rosy for this woman who had, I think, quite a lot of children with him, and she had to be in the background, moving from country to country with all these children and ducking and diving, and then he was there and then he wasn't there, and I don't think it was that rosy. So, but I still love the book. I only read his wife's book was an afterthought. I understand, but you love the guy, and you also benefited from all the schmuckelar.
Yeah, no, she did. She did. Everyone did.
She made it up, and she had her nails done every week.
Yeah, I think the best way I could summarize the book is it's like a memoir of a rock star meets drug dealer during the 70s. It's like if Mick Jagger had made all his dosh and kids with hash instead of music.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really fun memories of those days of hash, because I didn't even... I have never seen cannabis being scored in England, and I'm English. I left England in the late 80s when people just turning onto the greenery. I grew up and completely maintained my health in my youth with bucket loads of hash, but the thing was we used to smoke so many raucous cigarettes, packing it all into shillings and stuff.
That's the thing,
It was always a matter of tobacco narcosis after a weekend. It wasn't anything to do with the hash.
Or ruining all your mom's butter knives.
Oh,
Yes, on the gas stove.
well, no,
hot
that's
knives.
kind of why I do hot. That's why I turned on to concentrates right at the very beginning, because to me, it's just a modern day hot knife.
Yeah.
And we used to have a big Galliano bottle in the 70s. You know, remember Galliano? It's like a
wine.
Yeah, no,
orange
it's a
liqueur. It's a liqueur that you put in tequila sunrises.
Thin,
Like
beautiful bottle.
70s stuff. So the long, thin bottle, we used to drop the bottom off it, and that's what we would use at a coffee table. And I swear to God, the coffee table in the house had a hole in it. Cut a hole in it. Underneath it was a K-duck, and you just put the knives. It was like doing a font. That was in 1977. That one. That was 77.
Right in his prime.
Big chunks of Pakistani black hash, and in a Galliano bottle, and it was siff, matey. You know, I put it back in the kitchen, and it. Oh God! But now here we got the 21st century. And there's nothing siff about it. So we have.
We've evolved.
We've evolved. Thanks to Mr. Nice and the legacy he left. There's some great movie footage of him, and there's some really good DJ sets of him, and he was quite a character.
Yeah. And all right, guys, since it's getting to that Christmassy time, a great one to get.
I can't believe another whole generation might not know about him, because in my generation he is definitely one of the most colourful cannabis characters that I ever grew up with. I mean, he died. Well, he must have been
This year or last year, not long ago.
I think it was
What
earlier
was
this
he?
year,
60
wasn't it?
maybe?
Yeah, no, he
It was
wasn't
a bit
that old.
early.
Yeah, no, he wasn't that
Yeah,
old.
it was definitely a bit early. Quentin's watching. He says, "This is the Thinking Man's podcast." Okay, Quinn. Yeah, okay, Quinn. Thanks for the cerebralness there.
Jules, what have you got next for us?
Well, it wouldn't be the same without it. From the same era as Mr. Nice, this book changed everything, and it still does. I know this is one of Jeremy Acton's favourite books, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, by the legendary Jack Herer. And what this did was prove that all along there had been a cover-up about the benefits of cannabis, and it exposed the reasons for prohibition, why they were. And I looked at this through today as I was preparing for this, and every single page of it is completely relevant. And I actually bookmarked something way down here somewhere that I just skipped to. Remember, this is 1993. They were telling the world, you will know all about this from Doctors for Life's argument. The thing about these guys is, the government, is they tell you THC stays in the fat for up to 30 days, therefore it's bad for you. Yeah, but it's always got pseudoscience double talk like might be, could be, possibly, and perhaps. And to this day, every single article that you read about it being bad, it's always a could be, possibly, maybe, or a perhaps.
Ifs or buts.
Completely relevant book. And I've seen speeches of Jack Herer, and, you know, he's been dead quite a few years now, and his estate is worth absolutely gazillions. Have you seen the figures?
No.
Because he's got a seed.
Well, I know
He's got a seed.
strains
You can't-
named after him. since
Yeah,
he was
and it's
alive.
very difficult to get that seed unless you go to jackherer.com. Have you tried?
No.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like one of those Girl Scout cookie things. If you get a Girl Scout cookie seed, you got to go, how did you get that? And it's the same with the Jack Herer seed, because it must have come from something else unless you had it authenticated and shipped. And to this day, that's how his legacy rolls. I think his sons took over. I think his wife, who's quite elderly, is still the matriarch of the whole deal. But this is an old copy. This is an ancient
But
copy.
this didn't it come out as a periodical? It's been updated quite a few times.
It has been updated. I
I
was
think
just
that
about
there
to
is
say
a
that.
latest version of it, say last year, or I don't think this year, but maybe there is a last year version.
Well, you know,
It's
this is
updated every year.
This is 92. This is the 8th print from 92. Remember the Hemp for Victory ad that was the Second World War thing. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
You've seen that prohibition thing now, where in the 40s the US government made hemp legal so they could build rope to beat the Ruskins.
Yeah.
And then they banned it again because it was bad for you. And they've had this period where it was all good for you for the war effort.
Yeah.
Well, he was the man that found that footage in the archives of the Pentagon, rooting around all of these old boxes and stuff, and that was the proof that they manipulated the whole thing. Because remember, people have got very short memories. It's like, 40 years ago when you're voting, you don't remember voting the other 40 years ago. So this book proves that the argument is the same, the rhetoric is the same, and since 1992, very little has happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's definitely, in terms of cannabis culture, it is one of those sort of cornerstone
It is, and
books.
it's PDFs all over the place, but find yourself a copy of it because it is quite out there the way that it's put together. It's lots of little snippets, tons
got
of
that
information.
great grainy newsprint
And it's-
paper as well.
Yeah,
Just
I was
feels
thinking even the
nice.
style
Yeah.
looks newspaper.
It really, it's about hemp. This is about hemp. And where is that thing? Listen to this. In 1990, dedicated to all the prisoners of conscience and consciousness from the war on a plant, and to the spirit of mankind to endure and to seek and to know the truth, and let all lies, hatreds, bigotries, inquisitors, and ethnocentricities be thrown asunder, so that people continue to live on the surface of the earth with all their favourite natural plants and substances. It's
There you
still
have
not
it.
free. That's 1990. God, it's 40, what is it, years later? 20,
Oh.
nearly 30 years later, we're still talking the same thing. So I thought I'd bring that along for old time's
That's
sake.
a great one. You were saying that there are reprints. I actually think it's out of print now.
Is
I
it?
think it might
Oh,
be a
okay.
collectible.
Oh, eBay,
Quite hard.
yeah, no, completely.
So if you see one in your local second-hand bookshop, buy it.
Grab it. And you'd be surprised, guys. It goes deep. You think
Yeah.
the Guptas are OG. No. No. What you got there for us, Myrtle?
The parts book.
Oh,
Now, we
yeah.
also bought this on the internet when we first started, and it is written by a medical doctor. She, Dr. Julie Holland, and it's a reference book. Okay, so I don't think you would sit down and read this whole thing, but it's a great reference book. I remember sitting down at the kitchen table, when we had to write our first affidavit before
2011, yeah.
in 2011, and we'd left it late, and we were working full-time on a movie, and there we were sitting on a Sunday at the kitchen table trying to write this affidavit, and this book was absolutely, it was completely valuable. And the foreword, it's not all written by her, it's a compilation of a whole lot of different articles and things from scientific journals and that type of thing, but it's very, very readable. Okay, and it's got contributions by Andrew Weil, who was one of the first people to be given, a long time ago, before they really started clamping down on cannabis, he was given the right to do human trials, and that was in 1975. And then all of a sudden no more human trials were allowed, and then we know that our expert witness, Dr. Donald Abrams, has been, in the last few years, allowed to do human trials with cannabis by the FDA. So Michael Pollan, who you all know, makes great documentaries, wrote The Botany of Desire. Lester Grinspoon, the absolute grandfather of cannabis medicine. We would have loved to have had all of these people as expert witnesses on our panel for court. It really is. It's got all the good stuff in here. But what's really good about it is somebody says to you, "Oh, but what about the children?" You know, that famous old lemon. So you go in here and you have a look under risks of use and harm reduction, and there you have it. Getting busted is not so funny. Chapter on that. How real is the risk of addiction? Harm reduction psychotherapy. And then it's got a section on the clinical use of cannabis and cannabis culture and law and whatever. It is a little bit American, but if you want snappy answers to silly questions, this is a great reference book. For example, if you are doing a presentation, which we hope that lots of people would do around the country, and you want to put together something with the facts and figures, this is a great one. And I know that it is also available in ebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's an excellent one. And like Myrtle says, it's not like something you're going to read on your morning shift, because it is a bit heavier than that.
Yeah.
But
It's got longer than that.
They are longer than that. But the chapters are essentially written by some of the greatest minds in cannabis. And I'm not talking like rappers and like guys who create bombs and baits. I'm talking like the genuine minds, the genuine doctors who've been there for 30 years, the activists who have been there for 30 years and survived and built something in these industries. And the book itself as well, it's very realistic. It's not some altruistic thing. It looks at the good and the bad. It does give that contrast.
It seeks the middle ground for sure.
Yeah.
It's quite a legend in America, and so is she. She really has made a great name for herself. She speaks extensively all over America. And it's one of those things that makes you remind yourself that just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's new. It might be quicker to find that book on the internet than it is to find on the bookshelf half the time, on our bookshelf anyway. But it hasn't changed since it was written. When was that? When's that? Late 90s again? Is it late 90s again, isn't it? Last century.
It was 2000.
Was it?
I think it's like you can see if there's a website that's what it
Yeah,
defines.
2010.
Yeah.
So it had come out
man,
just the year. It was very, very current when we were writing our affidavit.
Right.
So it is not much that you're going to read in here goes out of date. It's like, this is how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure since that book has been written, there's a heck of a lot more information about CBD and all the cannabinoids, terpene profiles, flavonoids, doing extractions. It's all gone berserk since that was been written.
Yeah, and it deals with the ethics, because I think that's often a tough question. But let's move on to something lighter. My next pick, the I Chong, Meditations from the Joint. So guys,
I don't know this book.
You don't know this book?
No, man.
No, fuck, Jules, you got to read it.
At least I've got something to do. I can take the week off next week because it's bound to be cerebral.
Yeah, but it's very light. I reckon you could kill it in a night. You could kill it in 2 nights. Very light reading.
I meant to tell you you would be really proud of me on Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah?
I've binge watched the whole series for the first time in my entire
We
life.
actually stayed in the same place, sat down in the same spot the whole day.
Okay.
It was a miracle, I tell you, a miracle.
Yes, it's excellent, dude. Anyway, sorry about that. What were you saying?
We're going to chat. Maybe a separate podcast. So, if you're a fan of Cheech and Chong, hard to find a stoner out there who isn't. Love them or hate them. Hilarious. They are geniuses in what they've done. So, we know that sort of after the sort of 70s, 80s, things dissolved between them. You never really saw them together in movies, and they went their separate ways. And I remember it was a very distinct time for me. I was a teenager. I loved this program called That 70s Show. Maybe you still remember it out there. I'm sure you will. And he started re-emerging as an actor. And he was there for a while. And then suddenly, he was gone. And no one really knew. There wasn't really much internet for the Oaks back in the day. So it just was. You accepted it. And years later, I managed to pick this up in exclusive books randomly. I have no idea what it was doing there. And basically, he talks a little bit about the breakup after Cheech and Chong. So you do get a bit of perspective there. And them going their different ways. But what it really focuses on is that his son was selling Chong-branded bongs. And he got duped. Or their business got baited into sending one to a state that didn't allow bongs to go over borders. And they went after them. And he wakes up in the morning to cops and machine guns at his front door, as I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
And his fucking life gets flipped upside down. He has this happy hippie stoner rolling in dosh, bongs, life's like a growing his splifferoos, and then next thing he's in a jail cell.
Yeah.
And they threaten to take, I don't want to spoil all of it, but that's basically what happens. And then he spends 9 months in jail for this.
I remember seeing an interview with him in one of those like beige prison overalls. They took the cameras into the prison when he was in there.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was that called now? Wasn't
What
that
a
just called
mind
Chong?
fuck.
Or something
What a
like
mind
Chong
fuck.
or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's a great read. It's light. It gives you that behind the scenes. But it's just something you can eat up very quickly. Very juicy. But to get that insight from him of going through that psychological change.
Yeah.
And really getting fucked hard by the man. I'm talking both fists in hard.
Well, talk about fucked hard. Myrtle mentioned we went to Cannabis Cup in 2014.
Yeah.
He was there pretty much because of that. He hadn't been out of jail.
He was also getting one of those lifetime.
And he was getting, and he was also the face of Futurola. Yeah, that was the launch of all that. And I remember him coming out on stage at Milk Fair, and he was blazed. And he actually said on the thing, says, "I just took a hit of the winning weed there, and honestly, I can't even speak."
He couldn't. He was kind of like that, and you could see he had the worst drawback ever, and he was just this glazed look. And the whole of the Melkweg was packed with people. You couldn't even move, and everybody was hanging off of his last word. And then he just kind of like passed the microphone to somebody else.
Yeah, I follow him on Twitter. He puts out some pretty funny tweets as one-liners. He doesn't like Donald Trump in any form. Yeah. Yeah, and he bats for the blue team for sure.
No, I can imagine.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, no, he's an interesting character, and I hope his retirement goes well, because hasn't he got cancer, or it's in remission because of the oil.
It's in remission. I think it's all over Facebook. His whole journey.
It's got it in control with the heavy, I would imagine, heavy doses.
Yeah. There's something to be said for building up that sort of a tolerance, and look, that stands him in good stead.
Yeah, indeed.
Good idea. It's a lifetime achievement.
Yeah. Although you bring up how stoned he was in that, and I call this the Marx effect after Howard Marx, because he devotes a little bit about this, because he speaks about life after even writing the book. I've read some other stuff, and he says a big issue he has, and maybe this happens to you a bit, you don't have to say too much, but he would go to a venue or a gig or somewhere, and everyone would have the fucking dankest shit that he has to now smoke now and nod and say it's nice. And get completely fucked.
Yeah, that was in the early days. Myrtle made a big mistake in Cape Town one time. Somebody passed her some gas, and she inadvertently took a couple of hits of it just before we're very new at this, and she went up there, and her mouth completely fused together.
I just couldn't, and I just said, well, Jules has got something to say, and I just like drinking water and slapping myself to
It happened another time when we did this really bizarre presentation to the Rotary Club of somewhere or other, and at the end of the presentation there was a clap and everything, and there was dinner, and we walked out and
sort of ate dinner and everything.
High five, we're home and dry, so we went out to the car and hit a pipe. We came back in, and they said, "Oh, cool, right, question and answer."
Didn't fall asleep in your mashed potatoes, like
no, but as soon as I start smoking pipes, then I'd go off. I get
Jules
digs in the ribs.
Would not shut up. I was poking him in the ribs.
That's long ago.
Kicking his ankles, trying to say, "Just shut up." He was just going off like. Yeah.
It was to seniors, so we do in the seniors gig, and we're showing them footage of Harbourside, and Steve and Angelo's clientele are all old, and they're getting off the opioid medication, and we're just trying to. We're not saying anything. It's not our opinion. It's just the YouTube video. Watching all these people's eyes watching this thing. It was very interesting watching these guys, because they all kind of know in their hearts. They're all you know, they're at that level. They'd all been to tertiary education. They must have had some weed at some point. But oh dear, it didn't end all that well actually. I got very irritated with one particular GP who was adamant that we were heretics. And he said, "Oh, more studies need to be done." And I turned around and said, "More studies need to get onto your desk." Lost the plot. Should have posted in the book. But we don't do that cuck anymore. We the last time I ever did it was on live television long ago, and I vowed I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to behave myself. I'm going to say the same answer that I always do and be consistent and polite. Okay.
Cool. What's next on your list?
That bottom red one over there.
Yeah.
Have a go at that
this
one?
is a great one.
Yeah. So maybe you've heard of a Canadian activist called Dana Larson, or Dana Larson, I believe his name is. We always said Dana, but it is Dana, yeah?
I think it's Dana, yeah.
And his penchant, apart from being an amazing cannabis activist, is being the writer of kids' books and illustrations and stuff. And one of his more famous books is called Green Buds and Hash, a pot-filled parody, and it's on a parody of Dr. Seuss, and it's about a grumpy old man who wouldn't have anything to do with the evil devil's lettuce and go away, and now I don't want to be arrested and I don't want to go to jail because it's evil. And then he gets sick and then it all goes right. And then he becomes addicted to the feeling of not having any pain and not having any aches and actually getting older easier. And that's what the story is. It's true, I am not feeling great. My health's been rather poor of late. My doctor says I have the ills. He told me I should take the pills. I cannot even sleep at night. I never do feel quite right. I will try green buds and hash. I will try them, Mr. Stash. Way to go. So now he tries them and he has a big fat puff on it. And then he gets the archetypal red eye. And now I'm feeling good. They work just like you said they would. I never felt this fine. Green buds and hash are quite divine. I will bake a green bud brownie whenever I'm feeling frowny. I will try them vaporized. That technique seems very wise. I will take them in a tincture and in every other mixture. Perhaps I would prefer a puff and stop when I have had enough. I will roll some juicy joints and smoke them down to little points. I will toke up the bong. I'll do it all day long. I really like green buds and hash. I do enjoy them, Mr. Stash. So this is injecting humour into the cannabis community, because I reckon the cannabis community is full of mullets who really enjoy a good laugh.
Yeah,
they're really sharp people. They really are on the ball. And these go to, I don't believe that he passes these on to his charitable organisation, and it all goes through the mill to make more. And I don't suppose at this level there's huge amounts of money to be made out of all of this, but they're beautifully produced. And I think there's a section, he's maybe got 4 books. He's got an amazing pictorial history of Canada and Canadian prohibition of weed. Sorry, the prohibition of Canadian prohibition, weed prohibition. And that is a monster to get through. I haven't finished it yet. It's incredible detail. We'll have to do another one another day. But I thought I'd just put this out for Dana Larson, because he really is the most amazing activist. He single-handedly got 400,000 signatures to start the BC party,
the Green Party.
I think he's the man that went and knocked on so many doors, and he's just been exonerated in another battle that he had because he gave away 5 million seeds around the country.
Okay.
And they arrested him at some gig for doing so, and it all got tossed, and it's great publicity.
But he's been through the court, something awful. Yeah, and an interesting fact about Dana Larson is that he's married to a South African. So sooner or later he's going to come to South Africa, so it would be really nice to meet him in person. He's one of Mark Emery's best friends. Okay. And you know, we have our own Dagga cartoon here in South Africa. If you go to our YouTube channel, look for Jacob and the Dagga Stalk. I don't know if you can see the block mount over there. Yeah. And there was also in the early days of our campaign an AFTA student. What is his name? Tommy
Ward.
Tommy Ward made this, him and his group, this was their little movie that they
Final
made.
dissertation.
We went and saw it in Rosebank in the movie house, and it was really well received, and it's there on our YouTube channel for us to watch. Typically, proudly South African, Jacob and the Dagga Stalk. Is it, no, yeah, oh okay, I am handed. Talking of proudly South African.
Yeah.
Hazel Crampton's.
Nice lead in.
Yeah, Hazel Crampton's book, of which we went to the book launch in Melville when it came out. It was about 18 months, 2 years ago. We actually bumped into Justice Cameron, who was one of the judges at the Constitutional Court 2 weeks ago at the book launch. How cool was that?
Yeah, very cool.
Hazel Crampton is a very well-known South African author. She comes from Grahamstown. And this book was like an offshoot of her other writing. She's written a lot of like historical fiction that's based in the Eastern Cape.
Great fiction, brilliant
so
history.
Obviously Dagga would come up. And she had all of these various different references to the history of Dagga, and her publisher suggested to her that she should put these together in a short history of Dagga. So that is what she did. It is a little bit thin on the ground because we have had to research the history in great depth, and you might know that Craig Patterson, our history expert, actually got his evidence finished in the High Court in August. He was our one expert who actually got it finished. So our history evidence is in. This is a great little book. great gift for Christmas. It's inexpensive from exclusive books. It's still in print. I've seen it in exclusive books. And let's give kudos where kudos is due. Hazel Crampton doesn't know anything about Dagga, but she knows a lot about South African history. And this is a good little read.
Do you remember the clientele? Do you remember the blue rinses in the front row cackling away? You know, they're all doing tea and canaps and stuff at the book launch, and there's all these Methodists going gracefully grey at this whole thing.
It was like a blend of 7 de Laan and 702. That's the only way I could explain it.
Like Melville,
no, for the book launch.
Yeah, you were there that night, weren't you?
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's to be commended for putting the book together with all of these snippets, and there's some great footnotes to get to somewhere else. It's really well researched. So if it really is. You're talking about a bog book. That's more like a really good South African bog book, because you can open it up and there's an article about something that you could get your mind going, and you can go and research that later in more depth.
And also,
it's a good starting point.
Silly season upon us, great Christmas present if you do that kind of thing, or a great souvenir to take overseas if you're going to, like, visiting relatives, or other stoners overseas that would be interested. It's a nice little, it's like a little brochure. Dagga, a short history.
Yeah, at the beginning, when I first read it, I'll be frank, I thought the best thing about it was the cover. But then I took a step back and I looked at the cover, and it is what it says it is. It's a short history.
Right.
But it does take you from how it got here. And how it sort of set roots here. It's not an in-depth thing like Mert says. You're going to read something, and if you like what it says, you're probably going to have to read more somewhere else. And I highly recommend what Craig Patterson's written. That's pretty in-depth.
Oh,
that's not, it's not easy. It's not easy.
I think it's quite easy. Prohibition and resistance.
How about this? Remember when we saw it, and we got a signed copy, etc., and we bought stuff to give away. We looked at each other, and we've written 10 times more blog posts of the same. If we put all of your writings in a book, it would look kind of like this.
It looked like the fucking phone book.
So it was a good start. It is a good reference point for getting out of there. It really is.
And it was encouraging, because I think for us at the time, even though it was only about like 2 years ago, even a year and a half ago that this book came out, it was still pretty barren as activists in that. We still felt very much on our own, and then out of left field comes this book.
Yeah, good.
As far as I know, it's the very first sort of non-fiction that has got the word Dagga on the front of it. The RIDCAD of 1952, the interdepartmental view on Dagga. What was it? The RIDCAD Committee on and Dagga. The groundbreaking 1952. I can't remember what RIDCAD means, but it said Dagga on the front page. So this is the first book that isn't a government periodical that ever had the word Dagga on the front. And go read her books. What's it called? African Queen?
The Sunburned Queen.
The Sunburned Queen. Wow!
I got the impression that was much more of a big deal than this.
Oh no, that's a novel.
Yeah, this was an offshoot. Yeah,
this is just collected anecdotes that she's found along the way, but. The Sunburned Queen is all about the Transkei coast and the centuries of history of people living there and getting into their thing. Yeah.
Nice. On to my next book, guys. Christmas time, if there is a budding grower in your life. I've read a lot of grow books.
Budding grower.
Oh, the cop's got ours.
Yeah.
Our copy of that. That's Buzz's copy of it. Yeah.
And it's Marijuana Horticulture. The Indoor-Outdoor Medical Growers Bible by Jorge Cervantes.
Oh, Mr. Cervantes.
So
it is totally the Bible.
Yeah, this guy's been writing about weed for a fucking long time. Since High Time started back in the 80s or 70s or whatever.
He first started with a quill.
Yeah, I imagine borrowed it from Shakespeare. But this guy knows a lot about growing weed. He's got DVDs, he's got all kinds of things. But this, as it says, is a Bible. This isn't light reading, but if you think someone's going to go the distance or you're going to go the distance, it's really easy to go online and find information, but it's also overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
With something like this, and it's like 500 pages of a nice blend of bud porn and what you need to know. It starts at the beginning in a really grounded way. And you're going to do what I did the first time I got it. You're going to be, oh, here's the book. And yeah, I know. But you just need to stop, sit down and read the thing. And this thing, you can't go wrong with your
It's
craft.
a textbook.
You can't go wrong.
How to learn.
How old is it? Is it update? Is it?
This one's been updated. So this version I've got was pre-LED lighting.
Yeah, that's
but it was
okay.
everything up to there. And when I'm saying everything, this is, okay, also pre-dab. They do reference it a bit, but pre-dab. But this is everything from getting a seed to making fucking hash, bubble hash, dank weed, curing, drying, absolutely every factor you can think about.
It's quite a market though, isn't it? The grow books that are out there now for weed, it's pretty swamped. I mean, that one's gone the distance, but there must be some serious competition to it.
Oh yeah, no, there is. I think Dan will surely bring around some good books as well. So by no means would I say it's necessarily the best, but I feel like it's the best, just the way it's put together.
Isn't this the one that the cops took from us?
Yes,
it's
it is,
exactly
because
we were just given one as a gift. It was only months before for Christmas.
We'd been given that, and we'd been given the Canna Bible.
With the three...
the cops were going through our bookshelf and picking out the books, and then they made a little pile of the books that had weed on the cover. And then we said, well, why those books? And then they said, no, because they've got the Dagga on the cover here. So we said, but all these other books have also got Dagga inside. No, they weren't interested with the books that are the only ones with the cover. And then they took that book there and they sat down, two of them at the kitchen table, and they were paging through. And then they got to with the lights and the grow rooms and that, and then they were going, yes, you see, this is what we're looking for. Dis waarna ons soek. Dis a lab. Dis hierdie fucking lab in that book. And then they took that book, and I think it was an older version, the Canna Bible and one or two other books, and poof, off they've gone. I mean, one day when all of this is over, I'm going to go back to the Millstrip police station and say, where's our books? We want them back.
And the £1,000 bail.
And the £1,000 bail. That's going to be a thing.
Books voucher.
But surely you must be able to claim some sort of interest on the bail. I mean, 7 years, a grand at 7 years. What could this be worth? Coffee on the way home.
You can hardly go and get a steak in Krugersdorp for that.
Sure, steak in Krugersdorp.
But Joe, it was terribly sad that they took all your books, but I'm glad that the library is growing. But I think it's time to get on to some news this week, guys.
Okay.
Something that was very interesting that happened was the stay of prosecution in the Northwest Province. From what I understand, this is the first one in that province. This is groundbreaking, and the guys who got it did it on their own, like really man alone, pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah, huge shout outs to Waldo and Rian. They were arrested. We got huge panic calls on the 16th of December last year, I remember, because it was on that public holiday. Yeah. They spent a lot of time, quite a lot of time locked up. I think it was about 4 or 5 days or something, because it was over the public holiday. It was very traumatic because their farm is quite remote. Anyway, it was out there in the Northwest, in the rural areas, and they decided, no, fuck it. We're going to go and get the first stay of prosecution at the Mafeking High Court. Now, it was quite a distance. It was about 350 kilometers round trip. These guys had, all their plants taken. They were being ostracized at work. They didn't have any money, but somehow they stuck through it. The government opposed their application, which is, we always call in the lawyers then. You say, well, people have got at least a little bit of money to pay the lawyers, get some help. But no, Waldo stuck to it. They wrote their own papers. Jeremy helped them quite a bit. And today, all paid off.
That's quite
paid off.
It's a good point you make, though. Because this was a precedent, because it had never happened in Northwest, we had to bring in the heavy mob in the end. Because
yes, we did get them legal help, but they spoke for themselves in court.
Didn't they get an advocate to sign off as well? I think it got to counsel.
They got an advocate to help them with their papers and check all the papers and everything, but there was never anybody who spoke for them in court.
Yeah, so that was, it took 11 months. It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as mahala. It's, you know, you can do it yourself, but it's going to cost you a fortune in fuel and photocopying and time and lunches in the wimpy and stuff and coffee and
days off.
You know,
all
and
of
I'll
that.
never forget the one Join the Q lawyer who helps us. The magistrate was being particularly difficult in Koster. Now I can tell you that 99% of you watching this show don't know where Koster is. Okay, it's out here.
Which is fine. It's okay.
Yeah, you're not really missing anything. So we got up really early in the morning and we drove off to Koster in the northwest. It's about 4 hours from Johannesburg. And we got there and it was really a very sad affair. It was quite a sort of broken down courthouse. We waited. And eventually there was another postponement. And then we went to the local sort of drinking hole for a toasted sandwich, and then we came home. You know, people who live in the cities and get caught up in all of that forget that everyday problems like prohibition in the street also affect people in quite remote areas. When we were in the Northern Cape, we met the Rastas who were bussed in Porvada. They've got 600 k's to go to the High Court.
Yeah.
So I think that the way in which this brings people together and the way in which it makes active citizens is really, really important for South Africa. And that's why we have to make our voices heard, because we are the active citizens who are changing the law. Going to get a stay of prosecution after you are bust is not an easy option. It's not an easy way out. It is never free. There's ways of doing it that can cost you an absolute minimum, but it's never free because it costs you your time. It costs you all sorts of, psychologically it's difficult, you know. None of us know about the law. So we really have to give a huge round of applause to those people, and there's many people out there. We've got 59 stays of prosecution now.
Is that the 59th?
Today. That was 59.
So the next one is we're zeroing
Jeremy's
in.
got a whole bunch going in Cape Town.
Yeah, there's another wave in Cape Town, but Cape Town's like a cut and paste kind of thing now.
Yeah.
But you know, our next big one is trying to organise the Northern Cape, because we went through Pofadder and we met those people, and they're a Rastafarian community with next to nothing, but
they're
still found.
So determined.
They gave us R1,000. They gave us R1,000 a donation to Fields of Green with goodwill, that we'll go away and do the photocopies and file the things and get the photocopies to them. And
it's even really difficult. There was no photocopy paper in Pofadder, and the nearest town is Carcamas, which is or Krabi's, which is hour and a half away. You know, if there's no photo paper, there's no. So what we've done with Pofadder is we just send everything to them on the courier, and all printed and all sorted out already. And then the kind souls did a whip around the community for money for the printing and the courier and getting the papers. So that was really amazing. So. Us in the cities, people out there in the rural areas, sometimes it's much more difficult to confront the law. But people are doing it.
Well, this one here, this came in 2 days ago from Kwakwa in the Free State. And we haven't got a stay in Bloemfontein. And this is just poured out without a single bit of punctuation. And it's a hideous story that is in a shack in a township, and cops clapping people. And this kid, who's 22, has been brewing weed in a pan to drink as tea, to lose weight, and to stop his anxiety and a pain in his chest and a heart problem, and he mixes it with other traditional herbs because he doesn't want to accept the fear of dying young. And now they busted because he was set up by people who don't like him brewing the stuff in his shack, and they hid it in some baby clothes, and now there's baby implicated and the whole family and stuff. He got hauled off. I think it's a spelling mistake, or it's a bit of a typo. It says 0.5 of a gram. I think it's half a kilogram actually that he was boiling up and stuff. So it's a lot more than personal use, but this is a plea. This is an absolute cry for help. And his appearance is on the 27th of November. So now we have to figure out how on earth are we going to get to Kwakwa from here and do that. And it's another serious resource we have to think about. But it's been playing on our minds a lot, this one.
But
and it's another precedent that we haven't got.
It's also an opportunity to just, if you have lots of patience, is just to show people how to do it themselves. Because it's really not It's really not difficult. It's now with having 59 stays. We know the process. So you just got to give people the confidence and empower them and say it's not the end of the world. You've just got to be patient and persistent and keep going at it, and everybody can do it.
I think it saves a lot of time if you do go there with a lawyer the first time.
Oh yes,
it
does make it easier.
It makes it easier because they have to take you seriously at that point, because the lawyer can speak in their language, which is the whole point. So a layman can do it, but they might mess you around and say, sorry, you haven't signed that. I'll see it come back a week on Thursday.
A week on Thursday.
Sorry, we're shut. Oh,
this
no,
is
2
wrong.
weeks.
That's wrong.
Yeah, so that's where the lawyer can help out, and maybe you spend the 2-3 grand on a cannabis-friendly lawyer, and he or she can make sure that you only do it once. But when you see the High Court, the look on the High Court's face, that's when you may well need an advocate to sign a High Court docket, because a lawyer can't. So that is another bit of money for a signature. But this 22-year-old is quite capable of going up there and speaking for himself. But anyway, that's another whole story. We've got the Northern Cape to do. We've got the Free State to do. We've got Natal. We've got North Gauteng, the Western Cape. Have we got the Eastern Cape?
Yes, we've got PE and Grahamstown in the Eastern Cape. In KZN, we've got Durban and Pietermaritzburg. We don't have any in Mpumalanga, but a lot of them in Mpumalanga, there's a High Court in Nelspruit, but a lot of Mpumalanga towns are the High Courts in Pretoria.
Well, most of them, they still haven't opened the Nelspruit side. So that's probably why we don't get any in Mpumalanga. It all goes to North Gauteng. So there's 11 High Courts, and I think we've got 6 of them now.
I think so.
So we've got more than we've captured them. We've captured them. We got 6 out of 11. So that was Rian and Co. They tipped the scale today, I think. If that's right, I think that's right.
I think so.
Maybe it's a big point.
You know what we don't have is South Gauteng, Johannesburg.
No, we don't.
Yes, they just refuse. It's just down the road.
But guys, I think, and I'm not going to lie here, we get a lot, and particularly Myrtle, you get a lot of mails every day with questions.
Jeez.
And I think in our minds they're basic, and we've got the answers prepared. But I know you deal with a lot of queries. Yeah,
at the moment we're just really, really swamped by all sorts of questions. And I just want to kind of implore people to just go and do a little bit, just take a breath before you bash out a question to us. And just go check that it's not on one of our 3 websites. Because we spend a lot of time and effort on trying to put as much information as we possibly can on the websites.
Yeah.
And to put it there in a user-friendly format, and you can go to the Dagga couple website and you can see the whole history of cannabis, everything that's happened in South Africa from the beginning, from this history stuff, all the way to 2 weeks ago in the Constitutional Court. And then if you want to know specifically about our case, then you can go to the legal case timeline, which is also in the Dagga couple. If you want to know about what we think about licenses or the new MCC guidelines or whatever, just go and fish around there. You'll get our opinion. It's there on the website. It's there on our Facebook pages.
Yeah.
I think it's all too easy to just bash off a question to us if you're thinking of something. And we gladly answer your questions, and we really do promise. Sometimes it takes us a little while to reply. But we do answer every single email. But just think first, and go and see if you can't find out the information yourself. Particularly with it'll empower yourself. Do your homework before you come running to us. But we do love to hear from our supporters.
We tried putting out a stock reply. It doesn't work. Everything is so unique. We couldn't possibly put out a stock reply to this because it's never happened like this ever. It's absolutely mad. And the graphic detail as to the named constable who was stinking of beer. He was obviously drunk. He was full of alcohol, clapping this kid over the side of the face and the side of the head, calling him a black devil and heaven knows what. And it was because he was boiling a benign plant in his shack to treat his heart condition. And that's what makes me want to go to Kwakwa, to just calm it all down and make sure the cops know that we're watching. But that is a double-edged sword as well, Because then they start doubling down, just like in Pofadder. As soon as the cops find out that now these guys are being briefed by the rastas, there are being briefed by us. Oh Jesus! This guy gets busted every time he walks out onto the street.
Yeah.
He works for the mines, 30 k's away. They haul him over every single time because they want to check him out. It's awful being a Rastafarian in Pofadder because it's just like the Dark Ages. Their weed is weed there, and nothing's changed there.
But there's some great weed that grows up there, up north on the Orange River. Whoa!
Yeah, I know.
Don't underestimate it. Up there, it might be desert, but where the Orange River is, and then it's got islands in the middle of the river, and that's where.
And it's
very,
42
very
degrees, and it's just fried in there. Absolutely fried, and it's dripping with oil to protect itself. Yeah, I know. You could run in there with carrier bags on and just get a whole bunch of charas and sit there for the foreseeable month.
I can believe it. Tall ladies with long, thin fingers, those sativas, eh? Myrtle, this Saturday? It is this Saturday. We're going to be at Marapeng.
The last one of the year.
Don't jinx it.
No, okay, we wait. If somebody asked, we'd probably end up doing something else. But at the moment, this is the last public appearance of this year. We don't expect any in December. It's a brand new, we've tweaked the presentation. I think you're doing the presentation.
Yes, so myself and Arne, everybody knows Arne and Kulaleku from Facebook or from CCC, who's one of our speakers. We'll be dealing with various things. Arne will be dealing with botany and a bit of medicine. And I'll be dealing more with sort of legal and activism side of things. It's a think tank that's been running at Marapeng in the Cradle of Humankind for the last few months. They're building up a really nice audience. We're expecting about 250 people there.
Yeah.
And Marapeng is just amazing. If you've never been there, just outside west of Joburg. And I think it's going to be an interesting audience. The two of us will speak, and then the four of us with Arne will be on a panel. We're going to try and keep our speeches short, and we want to keep the questions and answers quite long. We'll probably have an hour of questions and answers, which is going to be interesting. So 9 o'clock on Monday, or you can look on our Facebook page for the ad that we put up the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to going back to Marapeng. It is one of those great tourist attractions. It takes you hours to get round there. It takes you a good few hours to do the whole of Marapeng. It's a very trippy place. They've got some great audio-visual surprises for you. You take a canoe ride through the Ice Age, and you go through thunderbolts and lightning. You do go through this whole tunnel. You freeze in this place because it's the Ice Age. Then the volcanoes come, and you jump out your seat in this like little boat thing because there's explosions and stuff. And then you get out of the boat in this big, huge dome of Marapeng, and it's the history of human beings. Top drawer. It's a great place. I think it's not cheap, but it is a whole day of stuff. But
it's beautiful building. Like the building's like an earth ship, so it totally blends into the environment. It looks like it's just a hill, but it actually is the whole exhibition center.
If you do go up at the top onto the balcony, it is completely 420 friendly because there's nobody else there. You just blaze away quite nicely. Well, there's a great view of hominid land. It's
go and have blow some smoke rings for your ancestors out there.
Oh yeah. I think, guys, if you're going to be there, it would be great. Looking forward to some intellectual discussion for a change. No gateway drug fucking bullshit. But if you want to come pull through and be that oak or lady who visits us afterwards as well with something that's going to floor us, we'd love to see you there.
It's $50 in. I think it's $50 at the door for Marapeng.
It's $50 and
That's how it works. We're going to go off on a recce tomorrow because we'll take some T-shirts and flyers and info and stuff and info packs just to see what happens.
And our trusty Joanne's going to be there running the table for us.
Yeah. With a credit card facility.
Yes, in case you need to buy some T-shirts for Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas T-shirts, guys.
Merch.
Can we get some merch, dudes? eBay collectibles.
Yeah, eventually, like that Jack Hero thing, eh? And some of these other things, because I imagine not all of them are in print. We're that last generation of books, so it was great to crack some spines, smell some paper there. I could see some of them have spent time in bathrooms, well read. Yeah. But guys, it's been a wonderful episode. It's been wonderful having you around.
Thanks.
Quick shout out, please, for our Fields of Green sponsors and supporters and things like that. Canna Health. check them out. Those terpenes, I keep hearing good things about them.
Gosh,
They're not
is that
for
the
everyone.
guy I met the other day? Yeah, no,
We met Steve from Cannabis.
Yeah.
He's total integrity. His terpenes are really the real deal. He's very knowledgeable about his product. He practices what he preaches. He's this like fit, frisk guy. He's the embodiment of Canna Health. He's also been doing this for quite some time, so he knows what he's talking about. And he's just joined our affiliate program. Yay!
Really glad to have them on board. Black Friday tomorrow, so shout outs, guys. Bongalong's having a sale.
I saw Bongalong's having 20%.
Yeah, 20%. I420 says they're going to have a lot of things discounted as well. Puff.co.za, I'm not sure, but they might be. Check it out.
Didn't see.
The Heiko, please guys, check it out. Much love there. But definitely, get your Black Friday on tomorrow, hey? Hopefully you can get some dank gear for dirt cheap.
I'm not going to shop. I'm not being like any of the sheeple. I think it's a completely contrived American load of bollocks, and I'm not going to buy a goddamn thing.
But I bet you if you saw a rig online for half of what you paid for your last rig in Canada, you'd buy it. Yeah, big talk.
Yeah, but it's getting it here, dude. It's getting it here. No, I would buy glass all day long on eBay and stuff and all over the place, but it just can't get to South Africa very well anymore. It's just too dodgy trying to get it in because it gets into the post office and it just takes months to get from Joburg to...
Yeah, and I know there's a big gap between sort of American products and what we can get in SA, but we've seen a lot of guys step up to the plate. Like I see 420 store. I don't know if they're doing a Black Friday sale, but also some great gear, some great looking stuff, some Cheech and Chong stuff. But I know there's issues there as well, Cheech and Chong versus Cheech and things like that.
Yeah, look, I bought my glass for this year. My little sexy beaker, but you never know what comes my way.
Yeah, who knows what Father Christmas brings this year.
Yeah.
Guys, if you want to get books, please, if there's that special person in your life, these are some great books. We have them, we've all read them multiple times, and I think that's it. So we'll see everyone next time. Please subscribe, like.
Yeah, like this. Just hit some likes, you guys. Yeah. And thank you for the live chat that we're looking at here. There's a whole thing going on down here. Peace and love to all of you guys. We haven't got an engineer tonight, so I've got to go over there to switch this off, and then I'm going to jump up and see. The engineer is, that's a long story. We'll get to...
Bye-bye, everybody. I got off the couch to come here tonight, so it was fun.